this relate to like, I don't know how to sure to say this. Right, there's a time where we're dropping, like find stillness, let everything else drop away, versus unifying it.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I had the experience yesterday of I was having a lot of intensity, a lot of intense activity, and then we did that. Well, that first activity, I think. And then I could feel stillness moving in my whole body. It was just interesting because I couldn't feel the activity anymore.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, I remember having the thought, oh no, did I lose track of that? Like, I was moving a lot of big stuff I needed to move.
Yeah.
You know? Like, what happens to the activity when you drop it and you go into stillness more and more?
That's so funny. And that's the question. What happens to the activity?
Like,
You
is
mean
it like
while
still?
you're gone? Like, what's the activity doing while I'm gone?
Like,
does it exist?
like, is it? I guess what I'm getting you say is like, oh, like I'm personally identifying with that activity. I'm like, oh, that's me and my trauma. I need to clear that,
Yeah.
right? So is it like still there when I'm done? You know, like I'm still. You know what I mean? Like it.
Yeah, I think there's several ways to respond to the question. On one level, there's a dissociation from the activity, and that dissociation is serving a particular purpose. So it's the same discussion as the monk archetype, who spends a lifetime kind of dissociating and going into emptiness because there's something to discover there, right? But if you're spending a lifetime there, you're really leaving out a big chunk of manifest world. But it can serve a purpose. So the purpose that it's serving is to realize through the exploration of emptiness the absolute unchanging. And what happens is when you let go of activity, you'll still find an experience in the stillness, right? And it's just really subtle. So there's subtler levels of experience, subtle levels of self, and then there'll come moments when all of that disappears and there's just absolute. But there's no framework for how to experience. There's no one that can experience the absolute because no one can be just absolute. See, so any sense of you there means that absolute pureness is the pure absolute, if you want to put it that way, cannot be. So in order to reach the level of realization of the absolute, you have to go through layers of dissolution. And each layer of dissolution gets you to a deeper experience of stillness. And if you were to draw it in a model, it would be like, this is absolute. This is the activity. This is where stillness starts. The absolute is kind of like in the center of the stillness. So if I'm here, I'm feeling really still. I feel still. Great. Me, Thesa, is calm. Perfect. Okay, I let go of that. Thesa. There's a next layer of subtler experiencer. Then I'm like, oh, this is the absolute. You know? I must be in the absolute. This is great. No. Let go of that one who's going, I'm in the absolute, right? And you keep, but these are stages that can happen over years or whatever. So, but the exploration of stillness is about the subtle exploration of that whole thing until the absolute is realized. And then when the absolute is realized, it changes the whole game. But, so, let's go back to your question. So each time the experience of self is in here and it's like exploring around and dissolving itself and getting a new experience of emptiness, the sense of self transforms and transmutes because it's realizing it's like a step closer to the absolute. I'm using a model because that feels appropriate right now. So each time there's a step closer to the absolute, the one exploring changes properties. When it changes properties, it appears out of the absolute again and creates the manifest. It's fresh, spontaneously. So everything that you think you left doesn't exist anymore. Unless the you that went in here is going to recreate it. Does that make sense?
So the monk is having that experience.
The monk, I would say, is dedicated to exploring this space between what's still and the absolute, and into deeper and deeper realizations.
Yeah, so their activity on the outside changes each time too they come out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just that they're what excites me is both. Right. So each time the activity comes out, it changes. Like, what? I could experiment all day long then, because I can go in there and experience the transformation of myself, and then poof, like there's a whole new world that arises. Let's do that over and over again. That's what I'm saying. Go in, come out, go in, come out, go in, come out. And then when the absolute is realized, it doesn't stop that process. It just becomes play. It just becomes not as serious, or, the world that I create is not as dysfunctional as the one that I was creating when I didn't know myself as absolute. Which you technically can't say, but you got to talk about it somehow. So there.
Lisa, many teachers or traditions talk about questioning who is the one who's experiencing this, but as far as I know, you're the only one I've heard who, to me, that spectrum, that model you just showed, when you said going deeper into the absolute, there's one way to do it is asking who's the one, but one other way that I at least play with the concept is, or the feeling is, I actually find silent and still in my body, and then I often, to find more, what is more silent and still, I go behind that. I go deeper and deeper and deeper. So you're the only one I've heard of who's ever invited a spatial experience of. And so maybe practicing spatially then prepares us to then take that, any realizations we have, and also apply it. To apply it to the outer world or something. So yeah, I'm saying a few things there, but one is the going in, like I find silent and still, and then I'm like, oh, what's deeper, and I'm actually going somewhere.
Yeah, it feels like you're navigating space.
Yeah.
That's why I've focused so much on the kinesthetic experience and the spatial, because it feels to me like what you said, the levels of emptiness or silence that are accessed become then workable at the level of unification into the whole. So, into your life, for example. How can I experience stillness when the woman calls me last night on the phone, is yelling at me because I'm mistreating the dog?
The barking dog, yeah.
Right. So that's just a practical application for the unification of all the elements, the deepest ones that I've realized. But also, I like space because the realization of the absolute is beyond that. So it serves really well the whole process, and then there'll be a point, because the process cultivates us to get to the point of realizing I need to drop the process and the spatial experience, because I can taste something just beyond that, and because of what I've cultivated in myself in the process, I can not only taste it, but then I can become it. Does
that like you use the raft till you get across the river and then ditch the raft?
Yeah.
Is that like that?
Yeah. I would say so. I mean, there's part of the analogy that doesn't apply because when you're across the river, then you do something else like walk, right? But this, when you get across this river, there's nothing like that. But yeah, I mean, the tool, I like the tool because it's very simple and basic, and then when it's not needed, you just get rid of it.
I'm talking about the tool of using space.
Right, so having the 3 elements, calm and still, activity, me. Noticing that they're separate, allowing them to unify.
It's also cool to have a tool because then we can teach it to other people. So even if I get across the river by just experiencing the absolute, each of it, like what I experience from you is I can still throw something back over. That's actually a tool that
Yeah,
other people can use.
exactly. Instead of standing on the other side of the river
Being
going,
like-
the absolute,
Yeah.
the absolute. People are like,
Well, but so wait, are you having that experience
which experience?
of no longer using or needing the tool of the space shuttle?
Okay, how would I describe this? Because this feels important to finally kind of use proper words. Absoluteness is fully realized. Everything is play. So after you guys left last night, the woman that I got the dog from the other night, we had gone to her house, and for me it was clear that she didn't want the dog and she was not in a position to take care of the dog. So I took Coon Baby, and she called last night right after you guys left, and very upset. There were some things happened, like she left me a voicemail and I tried to call her back and then she wasn't picking up, and then she called me. So she called like yelling. When I picked up the phone, she was yelling. And my body was in like fight or flight. She was telling me how I wasn't taking care of the dog and how I came to her house and took the dog from her at 10:30 at night, and I thought it was like the ace of the community, so I could do anything I wanted, and I'm like, what? So I'm kind of dazed, sitting here like, what do I do? Definitely not coherent. I wasn't freaking out at all, but I was just like, and that's all play. So I can still look at that and go, oh, there's separation in my body between emptiness, stillness, this experience of me, and the activity. And that's all in the perspective of the realization of the absolute, which brings different qualities to it. It makes it play, it makes it magic, it makes it an experiment, it makes it fun. And my particular level of initiation is still dying in the form, so that I can be more and more fully in the experience, still with the realization of the absolute, but totally disappeared into form. In a way that doesn't actually a lot of times look like, here I am. It could be like, look bitch, you fucking talk to me like that and I'm gonna whatever, like, But there still can be the realization of the absolute. within that. It's just that there's like a complete conscious awareness around what is being created through this vessel within each action that is being portrayed. So that if I'm responding the way that I just did, it's completely conscious, and I'm responding like this because I'm creating this and this and this and this and this.